What's up, everybody? Y'all all right? It's been a long day. How many of y'all been here since this morning? 9:30, 7:30, 8:30. How many of y'all just got here? Good. We're going to talk about organizing. And let me just say this. This is divided in 3 pieces, and it lasts until what time? All right, so I got about 20 minutes. I'm going to give you the strongest 20 minutes I got. But that's all it takes, because you all are highly intelligent, highly motivated, and you are the best and brightest we have, right? That's what they told me I was coming to today. Did they get it right? Yeah. All right. I talk about organizing from the standpoint of direct action organizing. There is a difference. There's organizing that seeks to inform people, to educate them. There's advocacy. We have advocacy group, think tanks. Anybody a part of a think tank? Most of the time you find think tank, they neither think nor do they have a tank. But we are in an academic environment, and so we should be getting position papers. Where are the academicians at? Where are the PhDs? Where are the ones who are doing the writing? Because in times like this, we need clarity. It's very easy for confusion to creep in. But we do a specific kind of organizing, and it's taught at Midwest Academy. All the folks from Chicago, who's familiar with Midwest Academy? One of the things first thing you need to do is write down. You need to buy Organizing for Social Change. This book that I'm holding up. Put that on your list to buy. I think it's about 30 or 40 bucks. This is edition number 4. What I'm going to talk about is principles. Because I know some of you all, because I done heard it all through all the day, y'all the baddest organizers. You got the baddest organization. You come from the baddest neighborhood. You come out of the baddest tradition. You got it down. But if we had it going on like that, we wouldn't have the problems that we're having. And so part of what we have to do is deal with principles. People in position change, but principles never do. And so today I'm going to be talking about principles of organizing, and direct action is confrontational, in-your-face kind of organizing. There's nothing wrong with the other forms of organizing, but direct action does something different. It has 3 essential components to it. And if you don't remember anything else I say today, remember these 3 things. As a community organizer, as a direct action organizer, it has 3 main features. The first thing is it should win real, immediate, and concrete improvement in people's lives. If your organizing does not have that as an objective, it is not organizing. It is informing of something else. You got to win what? Real, say it with me, real, immediate, and concrete improvement in people's lives. People want to win. You got to have some victories. You can have an organization. If y'all had never won an issue campaign, people might still come, but they don't feel no power. That's right. We want to feel power. We want concrete improvement. We want something to change fundamentally about us as a result of being in an organization. And we want it to be concrete. That means it's got to be born in us, and we wake up every day thinking about it. If you don't wake up every day breathing it, if you don't wake up every day eating the love of your people, you're not really doing no organizing. You're doing socializing. The second thing it must do, it must alter the relationship of power. At the end of the day, all organizing is based on power. Don't fool yourself. It must alter the relationship of power. And thirdly, but certainly not least, you got to give people a sense of their own power. Alter relationship of power is different. That means that whether it's a legislative initiative, whether it is whatever it is, it's got to alter the way the people who have the ability to give you what they want, the way they view you. We got to stop looking at ourselves from a victim standpoint. We are more than conquerors. And so when I step in the arena, I like that song, All I Do Is Win. I'm looking for my enemies. I ain't running from them, I'm running to them. Then lastly, the power shift has got to be permanent. When your enemy, and I use enemy simply as a nomenclature or word to basically reference the people who can give you what you want. Now, those are the three general principles. Now, I'm going to walk you through some very strategic things, and you're going to look at those forms you have, and it's going to help you identify specifics. Because the problem we have is we don't get specific enough. We speak in too many generalities. What you want, freedom. When you want it now. Well, what the hell freedom look like? What does it look like? We want Mumia out of jail, and we're not going to stop until that happens. Right? We don't know what we want in Ferguson. Do we? Okay. I'm going to help you. Say what you want. Because if I took you out here and sit down one at a time and ask you, I bet you I would get 12 different answers. Some of them want the prosecutor off the case. Some of them want Darren Wilson arrested. Some of them want a new mayor. I'm just saying. Now let's get specifics. Y'all all right? You can hear rat piss on cotton. I must be doing something. Can you get one more of these? Anybody got any extra ones? All right. Let me see. I got some up here. Where did I put them? Because we need you to have that information. Information is power. Thank you. Not the book. Okay. All right. One is you got to be able to choose an issue. And I will just tell you, I do this, and I'm glad my sister Anita Burns. Raise your hand, Anita. Me and Anita have been doing this 20-some years ago. We started after challenging the President Jimmy Carter on his bull program about ending poverty in Atlanta. We challenged them so bad. The week of the Million Man March. Were you up there, Anita, in Chicago? Week of the Million Man March, I was in Chicago at a Jesuit priest convent, held up for a week, being trained on this particular methodology of organizing. I went to Farrakhan, the National Palace, to visit a friend, but I didn't make it to the Million Man March because I needed this material more than I needed another march, and it was important. The first thing you got to do is choose an issue. You have got to be very, very clear about the issue that you are involved with. This checklist for choosing an issue, the issue has got to be easily understood. Because if it's not understood when you are organizing, then it is very easy to be co-opted. It's very easy to not be very clear. It's very easy not to celebrate victories. So this talks about a checklist for choosing your issues. Let's go to the ones on the side. Read the first one for me. Somebody, real quick. If it is not going to result in real improvement in the people's lives, if at the end of it, it doesn't change people's lives, don't do it. It's a waste of time. I want you to hold your questions to the end, all right? I'm going to run through these real quick. Give people a sense of their own power. We went after the alter relationship of power. Your enemy, if it's City Hall that you're trying to defeat, they need to fear you coming. They should be in a planning meeting trying to figure out when are those crazy people coming back to City Hall, and what can you meet them at the community center to stop them from coming down here. It's got to be worthwhile. It's got to be winnable. Don't get involved with no silliness. Some of our organizations go off on a tangent on the most silly issues. You don't have to react to everything somebody do. In fact, you make your enemies react to you. So they had a press conference, so you got to have one. You know, they huffed and puffed, so you feel you got to huff and puff. No, you keep planning. It's got to be widely felt. If you cannot make your issue widely felt, it can be your personal issue, but it's not going to build organization. It's got to be widely felt. People got to be concerned about what's happening in Ferguson all the way in China. Do you not know that the Emperor of China had something to say about the militarization in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, a town that nobody even know and nobody wanted to go to before August 9th, other than the folks who lived there? No, you know what I'm saying. It's got to be deeply felt. When I saw that boy laying on the ground, I almost got in my car and drove. It's got to strike you and make you, it got to give you the anguish in your soul, because that's the only thing that will make you move. Don't you know if you make black people angry enough, the weather will respond to them? I'm going to just drop that right there and y'all can deal with that later on. You got to have clear decision makers. You got to, first of all, I'm going to talk about this real quick in just a few minutes to show you how to do this chart. You got to know who has the ability. At the end of the day, the first thing you got to be able to identify, what do we want? Then who has the power to give it to us? If you can't answer those two things, you don't really have a issues campaign. You have nothing to organize around. Who has the power to give you what you want? And then we say it like this, from where I come from. You got to come quietly and explode in the heart of your enemy. If you ain't willing to do that, you better stay at home. Because let me tell you, y'all talk about the tanks they got loaded up for you. If they willing to load tanks up against you, what the hell are you willing to do? Other than go to jail. I'm out on bond right now, so going to jail ain't all that. I'll be honest with you. I've been about 13 times and looking to go again. The police don't scare me. Hell, I scare the police. They stopped my trial in the middle of the trial, and the judge has refused to start it. That was almost 2 years ago. I get on the radio every day. Why don't you start the trial back up, punk? Start it up. Start it up, judge. I call her by name. Get the trial going. I want to be found guilty for fighting for my people. Hell, whatever the charge is, it's a jail. What is it? Did not Martin go to jail? Did not Malcolm go to jail? But y'all can't kill me. And if you kill me, I'm going to be known in somebody's heart for the rest of my life. So bring whatever you got on. Now, I don't go and start tempting my enemies. I just let them know I'm not afraid of you. That's right. Builds leadership. If your organization doesn't build the capacity for other leaders to stand up, let me tell you this. We live in a government that will kill you. Based on what you believe. Don't be no martyr. We don't need no martyr or martyresses. Don't be out there, I'm the leader. Here I am, come get me. Because this government will come get your bamboozle behind. There is no limit to what this beast will do. You think you bad? You ain't that damn bad. They drop a bomb the size of a Volkswagen on houses in Afghanistan and Libya. Don't think they won't do it in America. I should have told y'all turn that off. But as we streaming live, hell, I've said it now. Let's just go on with it. It's just set your organization up for the next campaign. I'm skipping some of these. You should already be looking down the road. What's next? Because we're going to win this. You got to step in there with the confidence that you are in it to win it, and you're going to win it, and we're looking for the next one. You got to have a David complex about you. He had 4 smooth stones, not because he needed 4. He knew that Goliath, he had 3 other brothers. So not only am I going to kill the giant that's out here, I'm waiting on his brothers to come on out. Because when I get through dealing with him, I'm ready for whatever comes behind him. Who y'all all right? Should have a pocketbook angle. Freedom fighting is not free. I love our nationalist community. I love our conscious community. But y'all cry too broke, and some of y'all are too broke. Hell, I had to pay some gas. I had to stop by the gas station to get here today. It should be able, let me show you what I mean a pocketbook issue. Did y'all see Darren Wilson raise $1 million in less than 2 weeks? And we had damn near sent a hat around to bury Mike Brown. I'm talking about some of y'all looked at me so strange a few minutes ago. I had no intentions of giving $100. I'm serious. That's the God knows truth. How many of y'all could use $100 and find something to do with it today? I mean, like in the next 30 minutes. I'm having second thoughts. All right. You got to be able to raise money. Don't feel bad about raising money. Now, we ain't talking about raising no money for your rent. I don't need you to pay my rent. I need for us to build an organization. I need for us to bring back Morris Brown. I need for us to save this campus. We need to be about institution building. I don't need the pastor to have another Cadillac. I need for him to build a wing so that whenever the revolutionaries want to meet, we got a place to meet at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning. Sometimes you got to organize outside these conferences. Now, I'm giving y'all what I usually give, but I'll get raw dog if the camera really went on. Because that's just what time it is. It's got to be consistent with your values. Don't get involved with something that makes you go home at night and you got to shower. That ain't consistent with what I believe. Now, let me say this. I think I was listening by streaming today, and Pastor Rice said something that's very powerful. We compromise sometimes. I compromise to be in affiliation. You don't have to believe what I believe. Your God doesn't have to be mine. You ain't catching hell out there in Ferguson because you believe in Allah, Oludumare, Oshun, Ogun, Elegbe. You're not catching hell. They didn't ask you, give me the name of your God, sister, while you're out there protesting. They looked at your skin. Your skin was your badge. It determined how they were going to treat you. Hell, they didn't know whether you were God in person. And they don't care whether you're God in person. So you got to choose the issue. Those are some of the checklists. When you all are sitting down and you're planning and thinking about organizing, somebody tell me, keep me on my time. I think I probably got about 10 minutes left, a little bit less. All right. Checklist for your tactics is the next page. Can you really do it? Is it focus on your primary and secondary target? I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes, then I'm going to get out your way. Y'all can read that for yourself, so I'm not going to read to people that can read. I want you to look at the next form because this is really the heart of why we're here. On the last page is a blank sheet. Look at it real quick, and then I need you to run back over to this. This sheet should be taken in every meeting when you're sitting down trying to decide. You got the issue down. You choosing some tactics. Tactics should be fun, and they should be real. They should be meaningful. They should have some shock value to them. I love getting on the expressway the other day. I love the students for that. Unpredictable, unplanned. It stopped everything in Atlanta. It called City Hall, the governor, called the mayor, and that was stuff happening behind the scene that y'all didn't even know was going on. But anytime my phone started going off in 10 messages within 10 minutes, I knew it was something serious. I had to look at the phone real good. I call home first, make sure mama and them was all right. Because when our phone start ringing like that, something serious is going down. It's got to be outside the experience of the target. All right? Got to be outside the experience. I'm an organizational researcher in food. One of the organizations back in the 80s was Operation Rescue. The pro-life people. Them was some gangsters. Them was some real thugs. Bill Clinton was running for office, and they had Randall, I forget the white boy's name, Randall something, but Randall was what was his name? Randall Terry, that's his name. Randall Terry he would wear a suit. Usually I got on a nice suit and everything. I ain't got but one suit out to clean it because I'm going to give the paid speech after this one, so I'm going to put that on for that. But he would have a suit, everything on. This fool, Clinton, was at a reception. You know how they all try to play like they like all y'all and shake it. This guy reached in his pocket, And Clinton went to shake his hand. He put a dead fetus in his hand. I said, damn, I'm kind of with the life stuff, but whew, I'm kind of rough, but that was even too rough for me. I'm like, whew, whew. Them fur people, y'all like Beyonce, she comes sashaying with her fur. Them fur people throw that red paint all over her. International news. His issue it bumped whatever was happening in the economy and everything right off the front page because it was so radical. Gonna put a fetus in there. Jesus Christ. Let me go through this real quick. Here's an evaluation tool. It's an evaluation tool to tell you what you should do. You should walk into every meeting with this as a guide. Take it with you. Make copies of it. Some of the things it talks about, and if you get this book, and I'm going to make sure you have my information and number. You can call me up, and I'll tell you about it. You should choose goals. You need long-term goals. You need intermediate goals. What would victory look like? That's the first thing you should put on here. You got to write it down. Anything you don't write down, you ain't really serious about it. I don't care who have a steel trap memory. You're going to forget something, right? So writing it down. Everybody write it down. And when we get through, we're going to have a shared, all of our responses on here going to look alike. What is victory? That's what the long term. What are the intermediate steps? What other things can we do next week? What are we planning on doing next week? We are going to do a boycott. We're going to boycott this particular store, whatever it is. Boycott Georgia Power. You have to write it down. How will the campaign win? You got to always answer those three questions on the first column, right? Will run improvement, change people's lives, alter relationship of power, organization consideration. I usually spend half a day on this. You've got to list the resources your organization brings. We are very bad at doing that. You really need to be able to do deficit and asset mapping. What that means is, what do we have that will help us to achieve our goal? We have a place to meet. We have a little small budget. We have people. Have to put all those down. Staff, facility, reputation. Who can we bring in here that just terrorizes the other side? You know? What are the budgets, including campaign contributions or whatever? How do you expand leadership? How does it build membership? Everything you do is an attempt to build the organization. But in that organization and consideration, you also have to do some other things. Just read that. That's enough. Constituent, allies, and opponents. You need to know who are your natural constituency. Who are the people that you naturally have an alliance with? And sometimes it ain't always your friends. I make common cause with the Tea Party. I ain't crazy about their politics, but when we wanted to oppose the T-Splosh on the political level, they wanted to give all of these almost $1 billion to white contractors to put in their pocket. No minority participation. We killed that thing. We made Tea Party didn't like it because it was expanding government. We didn't like it because black folk weren't going to get nothing out of it. We generally don't get along. So you have to see what are the allies, what are the opponents, who is willing to crush you as soon as you come out. You got to factor that in too. That's right. Who is on the other side and what is their strength? That's right. And how can you neutralize it? All right? And you can go down there and learn those. The other thing is targets. You got to have very clear targets. They cannot be ambiguous. It cannot be we are fighting City Hall. We're fighting for justice. We're fighting terrorism. The reason they tell y'all we're fighting terrorism, because you will never, when you going to beat it? That ain't nothing but a jobs program. I ain't even got time to explain that, but I'll tell you about that later. You fight terrorism because you need to be able to keep the war industry going. That's all that's about. Ain't nothing about keeping you safe. Hell, they showed you last week. The man came from Ebola. He could have had all sneeze on the whole auditorium if he wanted to. All of us be. So they can't keep you safe. But you got to say it is, and you got to put the name down. Officer Darren Wilson. It is James Smith who lives at 492 Smith Street. You got to know who the target, and the target is the person who you can get, who can give you what they want, and then you apply pressure. There are secondary targets also. Sometimes you can't get to them, but you can get to their wife. You can get their children. If I want to send a message to a certain person in here, I don't have to call you. I'm gonna call your wife. Your husband might get all y'all killed. Hang up the phone. I take that out. I take that back. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. Y'all are not ready for that. I'm saying, okay, it's a metaphor. All right, my last 2 seconds is this: tactics of what you saw on the street. Blockade, tactics is pickets, tactics of tying up the phone lines. Tactics should be within the scope of your experience of the group, because if you do something that's so crazy, the group is looking for an opportunity to turn on you anyway. And then you don't say, oh, we're going to run out in the street. Then let me let y'all know something. Y'all see, they had a whole lot of them here say they'd run in the street, but it started with 7 people. No. Because if I ask y'all right now, we're going to run in the street. First of all, we got the secure kids now. And if I'm a smart organizer, I'm not finna let you run out there knowing you got a felony. You're going to run out there with a felony and your bamboozle self end up in jail for the rest of your term. Why would we even ask you to do that? Ain't correct. Then your people gas you up. Oh, you just scared? No, hell, I'm out on bond. It's got to be within the context of the experience of the folks. Let me say this. I'm gone. But I'm going to teach this for over 2 days coming up in early January. Come to it. It won't be free, but it'll be worth it. All right? Real quick, I can do 1 or 2 questions because I got to turn over to the rest of the people. Let me give you my contact information. Please do not hit me up with no foolishness. I'm too serious for that. Don't call me with no bull because you'll get your feelings hurt. But my contact information, again, I'm Derrick Bozeman, Derrick Bozeman, Boazman. My cell phone number is 404-246-8001. Phone number 404-246-8001. That's all right. Too many people call it. I'll shut it down and get another one. And my email address is db1380@gmail.com. I wish I had more time to spend with you, but that was just a tad bit of what we do. We will do a fuller installment a little bit later on in the next couple of months. Come to it wherever you are. If there's just a burning question, I'll try to answer that. Otherwise, I'm going to turn this over to the other people on the panel. Thank you all so much. God bless and God keep. Yes, ma'am.
How much would a class be?
There'll be scholarships. It's going to be about $200. Yeah. It's going to be about $200 because you only appreciate what you pay for. You don't even appreciate this because I just gave it to you, and that's cheap. $200 cheap. Because if I had a 200 pair of brand new Jordans, the ones that's coming out 2 months from now, you go beat your grandmama up and get those. But I'm finna get you some information that will tell you how to be serious. It was over about $2,000-3,000. I didn't even pay for it. I made somebody else. It was about $5,000. All right. All right. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate you all. God bless you.
Thank you, Brother Bozeman. Y'all make sure you listen to his show on the radio, Too Much Truth. I want to ask Sister Dinah Tapman to come up and join us on the panel. Reverend Sister Reverend. Thank you. Because the framework that you were just given, we want to talk for a minute. There's a lot of people in this room who have experiential lessons to share. And I think that that framework that Brother Bozeman just gave you will help look at this experience that you all are having or have had. Before we do that, I want to move to the other panelists and just let them make a statement, and then we'll get into the discussion. Brother Khalid.
All right. All right, good afternoon, good people. In terms of organizing, I just want to put out a little challenge and then move on, and we can talk about it. As many of you heard early this morning, it is my firm belief that this grand jury has already made up his mind, and one up in Ferguson, they already made up his mind. The prosecutor's primarily sitting on it for political reasons, which is not atypical, waiting for a shift in power that they can use more to their advantage, and then they're going to put the clamp down. Now, we need to be prepared for that, and we're not. Let's just be serious about that. We're not prepared enough. We've seen this kind of trajectory, I would say, since Katrina, where there's been a little bit of mobilization that kind of, intensifies each time. So if you want to go through it, just a couple of the highlights. There was Katrina and some of the things that happened there. Then there was the Gen 6 and some of the things that happened there. There were some things that happened around Troy Davis. Then there were some things that happened around Trayvon. Now we're here. And what we've seen is that the younger generations are doing an increasing job of mobilizing, but they're struggling to turn that into more permanent and stable organization. So we have to work, those of us who are in some of these more stable and permanent organizations, to provide them with some of the background and help them to build the infrastructure that they need. And we got a short period of time, I would argue, to do that. This is the reason why. It's my firm belief, as vicious as we know this state to be, a lot of the younger generation ain't fully felt that yet, right? And I don't think there's a lot outside of looking at what's happened outside of the quote-unquote borders of the United States to get them prepared. But too many of us look at that as that's over there, and it's not really going to have too much of an impact here. We need to get them ready for that. Because I would argue shortly after November 4th, they're going to drop this information. A lot of our people are going to be out in the street, as they should. But when they put the hammer down, are we going to be prepared to offer any defense, any counsel, any legal work, any strategy? And it can't be ad hoc. It's going to have to be a little bit more than that. So what I'm asking is for all the different organizations in Atlanta. You got the basis of it here already constituted in the folks who organize this conference. So it's not like you're recreating the wheel. But another conversation intentional about, well, what's the strategy going to be to defend our people when they get out in the streets in Atlanta once this goes down, because there will be a response here. And then to what extent are we willing and able and capable of lending some support in Atlanta? So folks need to think about that and then organize ourselves to have the resources available, have the people available to do different things. So some of it's going to have to be like legal defense work. Just need to get prepared for that, because it's going to be that. Some of it's going to have to be media, so we tell our own story and not have CNN or NBC or Fox, whoever, tell the story, because they ain't going to tell the truth, right? So we need to put it out. There needs to be some intelligence gathering, right? A lot of intelligence gathering needs to take place. So folks understand, the Missouri PD are moving this way. They've got the support of the National Guard. This group done moved from here to there. Some of that we can gather with, and don't take a lot of guesswork. Some of us know the system well enough to know if they move in here and they moving resources there, we know where it's going. So just share that information, right? We need some of that. And then the basic elements, which is we're not going to have enough time, but we need to start thinking about it, is we got to get back into a deeper level of self-defense within our communities. And that's going to take a little bit longer to organize, but we got to start thinking about it now and start preparing for it now. So I want to encourage all of y'all who are in Atlanta to start thinking about that, demand a meeting, if there's not one already set up, to do that. And let's start moving through it, because we can't, I think what we done seen in that little trajectory I was putting out there is a younger generation is definitely waking up, but they still got some hard lessons to learn. And if we don't seize the moment to try to provide some basic context and infrastructure to it, we're going to have another wave of, and another generation of political prisoners that may not need to be.
Yes.
Right? And y'all should know, those of you who don't know, there are over 100 of our folks who are still in prison from the 1960s and 70s and 80s, who are fighting for freedom, for your freedom, my freedom, and we still need to do some work to get them out, right? So put that in mind and keep that. And if you don't know, look the information up. One of the best sources to find that information, for those of you who are not aware of that, look for the Jericho movement, and get some of that information. You could also look probably some of the more well-developed sites is Mumia's site, but that'll link you to some of the others also with Leonard Peltier. That'll also link you to some of the others. So get some of that information to educate yourself around that and to study some of their works. Mumia has a lot of short, great pieces. I mean, he's one of the best people I've ever read who can sum up, you know, a book in 400 or 500 words, right? And that's a powerful skill. But you want to look at not just his work, look at folks like Russell Maroon Short's work, where he talks about black self-defense formations. He got several different pieces that break that down. You can look for that. Some of it's online, some of his pieces in the Let Your Model Be Resistance. We put on as an addendum to that work. You can find some of those works. A lot of lessons to be learned there, particularly as it relates to self-defense. So the main thing I want to, again, reiterate, from what I said earlier, organizing, there is a science to it, no question about that. But let's not mystify it. Everybody in here is an organizer of some form or another, right? You just pulling your friends together to just sit down and meet, eat, chill, that's a form of organizing. Don't think that just, you know, taking a step to involve in a very political direction is anything different than what you've already done, right? Because a lot of people want, I don't know how to organize. Now, yes, you do. You know how to organize a basketball game, or you know how to organize. So don't mystify it. The thing is to just learn the lessons of how to do it effectively and efficiently, right? For this particular task and orientation, that's the challenge I think to a lot of the young folks that you need to take on. And the other thing is definitely know your history. Can't say that enough. Right? Study it, study it, study it, study it. Know your history. We don't have to repeat certain lessons. Sometimes we will, and ain't nothing we can do about that. Even if we know the history, sometimes we're going to repeat it because of the dynamics. But know it, because there's a lot more you have to gain by understanding the strategy and tactics of those who came before you, where they succeeded, where they fell short, why they succeeded, why they fell short. And be clear about that, because sometimes it's the right strategy, but it's not the right time. Right? The forces on our side wasn't great enough or strong enough, but it don't mean the strategy was bad. So you might need to, okay, now we have the capacity and the capability to execute it where the generation before did not. Pick that torch up, learn how they did it. So those are the things that I would just add to what was basically brought out. And definitely want to take up that challenge. We're starting to do it here in Jackson to get ourselves prepared for that, and to get ourselves prepared for just the level of repression that's already coming our way from the political project we're trying to take on there. So let's get organized.
All right, give it. Come on. I got a handout. Somebody can help me on both sides. You know, they say you should always be prepared, and so I brought a whole presentation, but I'm just going to speed through it. What I'm going to talk about, I never talk about publicly. And I'll tell you quickly, my father was one of the leaders of the Southern University student protest back in 76. 74. No, it wasn't 74. It was 72. It was 72. I was born in 74. I turned 40 this year. So I am not bringing all of the season to this panel, but I do want to share a little bit of how I was raised and what got me to where I am today. So my father raised me by himself. So I learned a lot about being strong. I learned a lot about being myself, not because I'm a woman, not because I enjoy dancing, not because I enjoy talking to people, but because I deserve to be here and respected and appreciated and honored as a Nana. So again, I'm going to restate this because this is different for me. I never talk about this publicly. Usually what I do, because of my background business-wise, in marketing and communications, usually what I do is I take my upbringing, having gone to Watoto Shule, one of the earliest Pan-African schools back in 1976, 7, Baba Ajay and everybody, shout out to the Watoto folks. A lot of my upbringing, I married with what I learned in corporate America, right? So what I learned being one of the principal organizers of the ground campaign for the Truth Anti-Tobacco Initiative back in 2000, which is what brought me to Atlanta, I learned how cause-based initiatives with a lot of money can make things happen when you employ certain principles, right? So what I did was I drafted a few things and wanted to speak specifically and briefly about when a crowd gathers. So I've organized in D.C. before moving here in 2000. I lived in D.C. about 8 years, and we organized these regular community gatherings once a month. We had a format, right? That's one kind of gathering. But there's another kind of gathering, right? There's some spontaneous gatherings when you see police brutality happen, right? What happens? What do you do when a crowd gathers and it's spontaneous and some people are scared and some people don't know what to do? Do you know what's significant about that? It's high risk but high opportunity, right? Now, the risk factor you need to talk about with the seasoned veterans. You need to sit down with someone, because as an organizer you wear a lot of hats. Going in that far. No, I'm okay. Can y'all hear me? All right. As an organizer, you wear a lot of hats. As a person, you wear a lot of hats.
Nana, excuse me, we need the microphone for the stream. Sis, take mine.
All right. Are we good? Can you hear me? You wear a lot of hats, right? So I'm a mother. I'm the director of operations and community affairs at the Davis Bozeman Law Firm. I'm the founder of AfriSalsa Cultural Organization. Blah, 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 right? We all wear a lot of hats. Now, when a crowd gathers, you need to put on a few hats. You ready? Pick up your piece of paper. Everybody got a piece of paper? There are a couple of things that you should be. And what I want you to do is begin to brainwash yourself so that when a crowd gathers, whether it's a conference or something spontaneous, I want you to think about SCIM. Everybody say SCIM. A little louder. Sit up straight. Everybody say SCIM. Okay. For the Trayvon Martin March last year, I showed up, was on the line with this brother, tried to hold it down for the ladies, and I guided this well-planned march that MXGM did a phenomenal job of coordinating all the security, right? So I guided, I jogged, and led the crowd, but as the crowd was gathering, we didn't expect that many people. And we coordinated it in 24 hours, if that, right? So within 24 hours, we're standing there, and everybody looks at me and says, Anana, it's a lot of people. Right? But you know what kicked in for me? SCIM. This is what kicked in for me. It wasn't too many people running up with you remember that? It wasn't too many people running up saying, all right, let's go. I know what to do with this crowd gathering. And in my heart, I'm thinking, whoa, this is a crowd. This is not my salsa class that I'm teaching. This is a crowd. But this is what I used. Just this past, what month was it? It's bigger than you. What month? Just this past August. To your point about if you have a particular amount of knowledge and young people are missing it, and then they turn into political prisoners when they don't have to, we have to step up. So I got a call. Brother Molly said, all right, Nana, young folks are organized and we have to be there, but this is their show, right? So we kind of hung out. I got there and I saw a lot of things. We knew that those parasitic, groups would try and attach themselves. We were prepared, but we also knew that the young folks weren't completely prepared, but we were there. So what I saw was a need for the volunteer marshals to get a little bit of assistance to help when a crowd, okay. So I employed SCIM. You ready? S, safety. You need to think about safety first. What does S mean? I didn't hear everybody. It was like 5 people. What does S mean? Because if you're in this room, you're serious, right? You're not in this room wasting anybody's time, right? All of this is pretty much volunteer for most of us. So what is S? Safety. All right. You have to think about your safety, and you have to think about the safety of your community. Okay? Why do you have to think about your safety? Because as an organizer, being selfless is pretty much how we roll, right? And unfortunately, being a black person, we're taught with our self-esteem down here that to take care of self is to not be at the top of the list. But who knows that Audre Lorde quote? Self-care is not self-indulgence. It's self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. So when you get a moment, you go to selfcareday.com and you decide to be revolutionary to take care of yourself. What's beyond self? Family. What's beyond family? Your block. What's beyond your block? Your community. You have to have the right perspective to be able to employ the SCIM model, right? So S is what? All right, K, knowledge. You have to have knowledge of the people in your environment. What's going on in here right now? What do you see? What do you know about the people in here? Tell me something you know about the people in here. Something that you can guarantee is the truth about the people in here.
They're here to represent our culture and preserve the culture.
Who knows that to be absolutely 100% true of everybody in here? Could there be some fakers? Could there be some? Right. So knowledge is power, right? You never know. And understanding that you don't know is important. So when a crowd gathers, you never want to assume. You just never want to assume. Okay. Inform. I is what? I is what? All right. Inform. You have to be able to, as an organizer, you have to be able to inform internally. That's your job. Take the hat off. If you're not an organizer, no worries. Just what Molly always says, put your head down to the young people through this part. But you have to be able to inform other organizers about what happened. This sister may not even know me from down the street, but I know she's an organizer, and I know she's a part of this circle, this perspective, and I need to inform her of what's going on from a SCIM perspective. The S is what? That's what she needs to know. So when a crowd gathers spontaneously, you need to be able to speak about what? Safety. All right. And then what's after safety? You have to share what you know, right? You need the knowledge. And then what do you need to do? Inform. What's next? Read it. Somebody read. What's the next? Messaging. So a lot of what I do at the firm, which again I don't talk about, a lot of what I do is I sit in strategy sessions to be able to look at what's happening with the case legally, do a little research in the community with the politics that's going on, and then look at the court of public opinion. You ready? Everybody put your hand like this. I'm almost done. Now pretend like you have something in your hand. Now put this next hat on your head. You're now a PR rep. You hear me? All right? Oh, a little Louisiana came out, you know. You hear me? All right. You have to give it up. Let it go. Don't you hate hearing these superstar NBA players talking about, I ain't no role model? It doesn't matter if you think you're not a role model. And as an organizer, it doesn't matter if you think you're not a PR rep. You are. So just get it out your head today, commit today, and say, I am an organizer, and I'm also a PR rep. You know what that means? What does that mean? You have to practice. You have to decide what your message is. You have to study what Brother Bozeman just gave you. You have to link up with other resources. And then when you get your message, you have to be able to communicate that message and not waver and not let somebody else take you off your message. Do you know how you do that? How do you do that? You got to practice and train. The way you learn how to keep your community safe is you practice and train. So everybody sees Attorney Davis and he's prepared and he goes on interviews. Do you think I don't serve that brother up with a wonderful training session that is not lightweight? Do you think he is not smart enough to sit down with a team of people that he practices and sits and studies and stays up late? You got to do the same thing. What hat did you just put on? What are you also now? Do it. Do it. Be done with it. Get somebody to quiz you and ask you the tough questions. Get somebody to ask you questions that are sneaky. Get somebody to ask you questions that are nice. Practice your one-liner. Practice your messaging. That's how you win. You can't just know the law. You can't just know what's wrong. Okay, here we go. Wrap me down. I'm getting excited. All right. Last thing. You got your messaging, which is external, right? All right. The last thing is what? What can you realistically maintain? Whether it's spontaneous and people are gathering and you know you didn't eat today and you didn't drink enough water and you've been woozy, why are you going to take up something and then pass out in the middle of it? Because you didn't take care of yourself. What can you maintain? If you're in an environment, right, that doesn't have an escape route, that's easily visible, what can you maintain? Who you going to stand up to? And you don't have options. What can you maintain? What is S? What is K? What is I? What is M? What is M? Right. I'm going to tell you these resources that I utilize, that we utilize, and then I'm going to have a seat. Did I do good? Am I all right with time? Okay, good. There we go. All right. What's the first resource that you need to have? All together, unity. One more time. What's the first resource you need to have? Raise your hand if you are not a formal leader of an organization. If you're not formally, with business card and all of that rah-rah. Raise your hand if you're not formally a part of you still need to know this, because you know why? Your family needs to understand safety and be trained on safety. My son is 4. We done already walked through the house. My daddy didn't raise no lightweight. I might slap on some heels on you, but trust me, I have taken safety training and self-defense classes for women in heels. It's a very specific class. So I put on some 3 inches and you try me, you're going to find out how good my balance is. Safety and training. Okay, here we go. Next. I just said next. Yep, next. You want the next one? What's next after safety consultation and training? Dr. Nzinga Harrison. It's one of my sisters that went to Howard with me. Next. Got to get it. Y'all know that emotional and mental instability. That'll mess up a game plan every time. Next. Your legal rights. Next. Got to know it. Next. Don't fall apart. Don't fall apart, organizers. Don't push yourself so hard that you show up to the meeting snapping at everybody because you didn't take care of yourself. Thank you.
Reverend, you want to give us some words from Ferguson, Reverend? Some of your experience.
Just to share some, and I think Sister Nana, because I was out there doing all these things not knowing that's what I was doing. That's why I was looking at this piece of paper, and I thank God for that. I am Reverend Dinah Tapman. I am a woman of the cloth who, when this happened, August 10th, I left the confines of the traditional church. Being out there on the line, I was the only person of faith out in the crowd on August 10th. When I went out there, I went out in my collar and my sweatpants. And at that moment when my husband and I reached ground zero, we were going this way and the masses were running the other way. And so I stopped for a moment and then I kept advancing, and my husband said, everybody is running this way. I said, I'm going that way. And so as I was going that way, people were just stopping. People asked me why I'm out there, and they asked, will you pray for us? And I'm, baby boy, baby girl, what's going on? They're shooting. I said, who's shooting? The police. I said, why? They said, I don't know. And they just started running. They had their small children running. They had people in wheelchairs, our elders with oxygen tanks. I get emotional about this. And I kept going. I said, I'm going where the shots came from. And I went straight to the front line where the police were standing. And the closer I got and they saw that I was coming and everybody was running, they dropped their arms to their sides. And I stood there with a group of brave warriors and lionesses who didn't run. They were sitting in the middle of the street in front. I sat down with them. And so what has happened, like Brother shared, we knew 2 weeks ago that they were not going to indict Darren Wilson. And how did we know that? Because they started 2 weeks ago antagonizing us. They started coming out with their Darren Wilson bands on, the policemen. They would boldly walk up to us with their sticks and do this, walk face to face like this, and stand there with smirks on their face, daring us to advance, and we stood with them with their sticks. And when they realized that they saw no fear in our faces, is when they decided to ratchet up. That's when they went back to throwing the tear gas again. That's when they went back to stepping on a bottle of water and claimed that we were throwing or shooting at them so they can say, with the media present, that we shot or threw at them. And so we knew 2 weeks ago. And so what we're trying to do now, because we had another one of our sons to be murdered by the police, and the intensity has grown, I can't even measure it. I mean, if you can think of your worst day in your life, there's still no measure of what this community is going through. And so we have 3 fractions of organizers. We have the ones that are sitting at the political table in that arena, our Jewish and some of our Caucasian brothers and sisters, and some, very few, I can probably count it on this hand and one, of our political representatives that are at that table. Then we have the organizing groups like this that have been very creative in putting together actions that are out of the box, that are spontaneous, and that are bold in your face, and they don't care. Because we don't have guns, we don't have tanks, we don't have tear gas. And actually, we had an organization, PICO, who brought in gas masks and Maalox. And they raided one of our churches that was a safe haven place and took all the Maalox and the gas masks. Not only did they do that, other supplies that they had brought in for the safety and the care of the community. You know, people were asking, because with me being the only one of clear faith, let me clarify that. Clear faith, visible faith, because I had on the clear symbol. There might have been other brothers and sisters out there, but they didn't, weren't recognizing, even with me, that I felt at that moment I had to make sure that no one else got murdered by the police. So they said, well, why did you stay out there? They boxed us in, took away our First Amendment rights, and they said you can exercise your First Amendment rights, but only where we tell you you can. We couldn't walk in the street, and we can only walk in a circle. And they kept asking me, why did you keep leading the people walking in a circle? I said, because as long as they were walking in that circle, and I kept telling them, family, we gonna break them. We gonna be able to go through this line, but we gonna show them that we can be obedient. But another thing was that passion and the anger to lay down their lives was decimated slowly as they walked. We start singing some of the old freedom songs. We start teaching, and I remember I got on TV, and because when the cameras left, let me specify that, when all of y'all left and the cameras left, the grassroots were out there by ourselves. That's when they start beating us, throwing more tear gas, because the cameras that were there, even though they got the pictures, they didn't show that side. And so one happened to catch me when I'm a woman of the cloth, but I'm human. My mind snapped. It did. And this is what I said. I said, I need everybody who left this land. And I started calling them out. And the elders came out that night. 97-year-old mother on her oxygen tank came out that night. Brother Mohammed and the nation came out that night. And they said, "Sister, we heard your call. What do you need?" Because I was tired. I had been out there from the 10th. This was the 16th. On the 11th, I got arrested. They had the tanks lined up in daylight. And we had marched, and Chief Jackson said he would march with us, and he didn't show up. So we marched anyway. And when we got to the line, we could see these big tanks. It was like, what is this? And they kept saying, you have to disperse. And we kept telling them no. But again, the young lioness and the warriors sat down in front of them. And some of us sat right down with them. And so the cars start coming through, you know, the rest of the family that were coming through, blowing at us and everything. And when we got up to take a break, you know, after they got it out, because as long as they were there, I was going to be there. This one young sister stood on the corner, wasn't impeding traffic. Actually, she was directing traffic. I was 100 feet away from her because I went to talk to the other part of the family. We use the verbiage family out in the street. That's how we talk, because we're family. We incorporated that because we realized there was a lot of pain and hopelessness on that street. And when we start using the verbiage family for those who felt like they didn't have a place and nobody could identify with them, it did something for them. But the tank, I looked around and they said, Mama Dinah, they just snatched a young woman behind the line. It was like, okay, we didn't know we left anybody because we don't leave anybody. They had snatched her. So I turned around to go get her. And I turned around and saw a tank turn and point his gun down at one of our daughters that was standing there. And I still can't tell you how I got to her that fast. I put my arms around her to pick her up. I said, baby girl, look at me. And by that time, I was up in the sky. They grabbed me, her, and a mother had made it down there, 76-year-old mother. So their tactics is this. Someone said, they don't care about I had that collar on, because I'm not going to share all the stories of the things I saw out there because we don't have time. But I realized that their moral aptitude was zero. All they saw was a black woman. That's all they saw. And so the tactics are this. They started waiting until the elders would leave. We would leave like 1 or 2 o'clock. And we let the rest, let them stay out there. And we found out at 3 o'clock, that fraction that wanted to get them killed would come out and incite them to be martyrs. We don't need any martyrs. These are your sons and your daughters, and you're going to lead them to the slaughter, and then you run. So we found out that fraction, and I would name them here, would come out after we left, and then the news would only show that part. That troublemakers, outsiders, no, some of them were outsiders, and that's what they do. They go from city to city when there's hurt and pain, and they take our most vulnerable sons and daughters and turn them into militias. That'll give you an idea of who they are. They turn them into militants, and then they take them with them from city to city to do what they want to do. So when we found out that tactic, we start staying and incorporate other people who were in charge of safety. You take care of the family, make sure nobody else get murdered for somebody else's tactic, because they would be behind us. They would do something crazy, and the ones up front are the ones that would get arrested, get beat, get stumped on, and they run. And so the knowledge that you're gaining here, when you come to organize safety beyond everybody say safety. Beyond anything else. Not self-preservation, but preservation of the community, which is family. We say preservation of the family. Say preservation of the family. And I have to say this, and I'm one of those who ain't scared because I spend my time in the streets. That's where my ministry is. We don't have the faith community that's helping us. We have gone to the faith community and ask them. Now, they will come with the organized piece, which is fine because everybody have their place. But we have to understand that this has to be sustainable. What do we need from the family here? We already know they have brought in more tanks. They have a cache building full of grenades, because we have intelligence, those who are in the inside that has that intel, that who's been sharing it with us, somebody with the conscience. They gave us their 10-page plan. They had the FEMA plan already in place, the concentration camps already in place, yes. And within the last 3 days, every hotel in St. Louis is sold out with extra policemen, National Guards, and guess what? SWAT from Iraq, the Green Berets, are in St. Louis right now. And so what we need now is safe places. Somebody gave us that 10-page plan 2.5 weeks ago, we started looking for safe places, safe havens for our people, resources. And believe it or not, and this was hurt, I tell people St. Louis is a different animal. But they are numb, sis. You don't understand what I'm saying. They have become so numb and complacent that when we start sounding out the clarion call, they're not going to indict them. We need to prepare for the slaughter. It's like deaf ears. So after November 4th, probably the 5th, they will announce, because we have a very contentious voting process that's coming up, where we have to choose between evil and eviler. That's all we have. We have nobody else to vote for, because we left a vacuum when we let the only African American person we had in office out. We didn't fill that vacuum. And so they have us between a rock and a hard place. Now, when I say they've become numb, we've been asking people from all spectrums and walks of life, and say, we need resources, we need first aid kits, we need gas masks, we need non-perishable foods. And they were looking at us like, okay, we hear you. That hasn't come. Well, now what we're doing, we have a final meeting on Monday. Okay. Because what we have done is, because we realize we have to take the knowledge and the intel and work smart. We have a meeting with all of the powers that be, that they agree the safe havens that we have, even though they have proven by going into the church that they would be sanctity. Because rules of engagement, that we're going there. We have to. We have no other choice. And so after that meeting, those safe places and the places to send those resources to, I'll be contacting people to let them know. Because the reason why they're dragging this out, because what they're doing now, another thing they're doing ride-alongs. Because everybody in the community knows, you know, in your community, most of the time you know the policemen in your community. And we're seeing all these new faces. And we found out what they do. During the daytime, they go to the west side of St. Louis, where they think none of us are going to basically go, but we're being strategic. So we have an intel team who has been going in the spots that we know they kind of would do this kind of stuff. And I wish I had my pictures where I can show you where they found the gatherings of the tanks, the gatherings of where they actually are doing tactical things outside in the park, where the parks that we normally wouldn't go to. So we have pictures and intel. Now, we have been responsible. Some of the things that were happening out on the street, the media was with us and would not show. But we also, everybody had a phone. We would say, phones up. And we would do what we have to do. And so we're just now streaming our history and our historical context because they didn't show it. We gave them an opportunity, and actually we talked to some of the media and told them, because you guys were not biased or unbiased, you just did whatever sensationalized, we're now going to have our own media stream. So you've probably been seeing little things like, oh, we didn't know this happened, because we're just not getting them out there. And strategically, that's what we're going to do. So again, November 5th, just keep that date in your mind. When you hear and see what happens to this portion of the family, by that time, before then, you will have information to send resources for those of you who can make it to the ground, because there's nothing like being a witness to what's going on. That if you make it back to that space, because I believe that God chose Michael, he chose the space. Why is this totally different? Number one, they're getting uneasy now, having that effect on them where the legislator is now saying, well, you know, because St. Louis has been an apathetic, and things have happened and happened and happened, and, you know, the community uproar a day or two, and then we're, you know, kind of disappear. And now they realize it's been 78 days. And not only have it not died down, it has gone up another notch. And then to see you all, I cried when I saw Atlanta. I was in a forum, and they said ATL shut it down. And I'm like, what? And everybody held up their phones, and I cried. And so just to see that we now, as a people, realize that when they kill one of us, it takes a part. And if you don't feel that, you need to go to another place. I don't know where that place would be. But apartheid, when it finally hit us in the United States, apartheid, it took 100 years, but when it finally took a piece out of our soul, out of your spirit, is when it was broken. We don't have 100 years, y'all. Our kids, I can say that, I'm 54, are out on the streets because in 1968, we laid down and got comfortable. And if we had not, our kids would not be out on the street today. But because you're out there, we're out there. And so we have learned some lessons. And the mistakes that we made, that we have to speak and be honest and say we made them. We have to be honest with ourselves. And then ask you to forgive us, and then said, okay, we're going to take those lessons that we learned and give them to you. But I'm talking to the younger generation now. You guys are brilliant. I honor you and I salute you. And we have a lot to learn from you. So teach us. And that's one of the angst we're having in St. Louis. It's like Tori said, it's those with the knowledge that won't share, or those with the knowledge who are sharing with those who won't listen. It's going both ways. And so within the struggle, we're struggling, but we're still going to win because we haven't given up.
Thank you, sister. Okay, part of this this conference is organized not just for us to talk to each other, but to come out with some specific things that we can move forward to do, because this is one day in a very long and continuous struggle. Actually, our struggle is centuries long now, and it's not over yet. So here are a couple things to summarize what we've heard, and then I want to hear from you all. First and foremost, organizers have to be responsible, because you are asking people to engage in stuff that can adversely affect their lives. So what you say, what you do, and what you ask other people to do, you have to be responsible about it. You call people out into the street, you basically are responsible for them. And so the planning that it takes, now obviously you can't deal with everything that comes, but your planning and execution has to be done in the most responsible manner. Study. Brother Khalid mentioned this. Work and study are two sides of the same thing. Practice and study. You have to study organizing principles like Sister Anana laid out and Brother Bozeman, but you also have to study history and theory, because there are other people in the world who have done this, and in our world, in our country, in our history, who have done this and had great success. So practice cannot just be the thing. Practice tends to be the more sexy thing. You know, we come back from the battle, look what we did. But organizing is also constant learning. Again, this is what's being said. It's constant learning. After everything we do, there has to be a session of lessons learned. And we have to be learning those lessons, because what the sister just said about Ferguson, they're learning them too. Yeah. And they're making adjustments. And we have to make adjustments. So that is a part of the process of organizing. It's constantly learning. Learning from our practice, learning from our study, making, adapting to new conditions, developing new tactics, because we are in a battle that's a part of a bigger war. The last thing is we have to finance our own movement. Okay, General Motors is not going to give you a grant to go to Ferguson and organize. Coca-Cola is not going to do it for you. Okay, now that's not to say anything about people who get money from corporations for their nonprofits. I've raised money that way. I've run nonprofits and all that. But for this work, we have to be willing to do what we need to do to make it happen. And those things are consistent historically. So that's not something that people are making up right now. Those are kind of consistent issues. Brother Khalid mentioned it doesn't always work. One of the great disappointments of the civil rights movement was Albany, Georgia. Martin Luther King was on the road. SCLC was on the road. SNCC was on the road. And they went into Albany, and Albany was so entrenched that they could not break it there. St. Louis is another example. But that's one battle in the scope of a war. So this panel is a little different than we initially planned it. But I hope that the information has been important. So let's get some response, brother, you and then sister. Yes.
I appreciate every one of y'all for the structure that you brought to this particular panel. I took a lot away from me. The first thing that I wanted to speak on, and I'm going to try to be very brief. Well, firstly, this brother reminded me, like at the town hall meeting, and I said this before, and I gotta keep saying it. We can't continue to be house Negroes in the public. Like, we can't be mad at home and be emotional at home and then get out and be composed.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? We can't, you know, like, as a black man, I know that there's a volume to being black. You know what I'm saying? They want us to tell, oh, shh, oh, be quiet, oh, shh. No. We got vocal cords. We respond from sound. You know, we can't continue to act like we composed, because we not composed. Right. We not composed. Right. Under all of our exterior, you want to break down and cry. The reason why I say the day that I saw Mike Brown, every time I stand up and speak about it, the day I saw him in the street, I cried 7 times that day. It's important that I say that, because I'm a black man and we're not supposed to cry. Because we're not supposed to cry. It's important I say that for my nephews and my little brother that's here. It's some stuff you could cry about. It's some stuff you could cry about. Saying that to say, you got to look and see the posture of the sister when she's talking. When I was in St. Louis, Ferguson, and then you walk, 10 minutes to St. Louis, they acting like it's not happening. Downtown St. Louis, they acting like people not dying 10 minutes away from them. It ain't no signs. It's no posters. It's nobody marching nowhere in downtown St. Louis. They want to act like they don't feel it. It's our job to make them feel it. When Tory got on Twitter last night and said, this is the best downtown hall I've been to, and I ain't even spoke yet, you got to understand that we got a different energy here in the South. Yes. And the people in St. Louis is from the South. If you look at the history, the Midwest is populated by people who left from Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama and moved up north, because the Midwest was the first places that would accept us. So you got to know we kinfolk. if I leave you here with anything, it's that when I was in St. Louis, it's no way to explain what's happening there. You got to go. It's no way to explain that. We can sit in here and listen and talk, okay, they're gathering tanks. Y'all don't even know what that means. They literally are trying to exterminate us. It's a war on us. Specifically, it's a war on me and him. Specifically. And if you don't connect to that emotion, if you step out in a public space and you want to, oh, you know, when it's time for the cameras and you want to act like it's cool, it's not cool. It's not cool. Connect to an organization. I saw when she said the hands go up. If you in the organization, you be that. And you get out here and you talk to you talk to the young people. You do exactly what's on these pieces of paper we got. This is now one of my Bibles. When I engaged my young brother, he said, yo, Azer, what you doing? I said, I'm in Ferguson. I said, I'm in Ferguson. I gave him a book. I gave him 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I said, that's your Bible now. You read that. I got 4 or 5 books I put into my canon that I follow just as closely as I follow the Bible. This information is going in that with me. Because if you don't follow these principles, I promise you ain't nothing left for us. It's nothing left for us. Just when I was just there, a young brother told me, hey, I was a Crip before this started. I was a Blood. I dropped that. I dropped that. He was 15 years old. And if any of y'all know gang-related culture, he probably had to drop some bodies to be in that. He said, I'm going to stop killing my brothers. This is what I'm about now. Mike Brown, what I'm about now.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Okay, hold on one second, sister. Okay, one of the things, for those of you all who were here last night, it is very important for us to not adopt the perspective of our oppressor. We have fought before we got here, and we have never been defeated. Never been defeated. That's right. You understand what I'm saying to you? So we cannot adopt the position that we're going to be exterminated, because we're not. They got to come, you know, even Bob Marley said, what did he say? Have no fear of atomic energy, because they can't stop the time. You understand what I'm saying? The metaphor that he's using, it doesn't matter how much power they appear to have. We cannot be defeated. That does not mean that we are not under attack. That does not mean that we are not trying to win self-determination and justice. But we cannot assume a posture that we are going to be defeated. That's the language of our oppressor. Second thing, consciousness is not an event. It comes over time. And so we cannot judge people who are not where they are. I've been doing this 45 years, and I'm learning every day. Yeah, I'm much older than I hope I look. But you understand what I'm saying? That we have to accept that where people come to us, and we have to embrace that. If all they can do is come one day and bring $1 and hold up one sign, that's important, because the next day they may stay longer. But we have to not push them away because they're not where we are. They have to feel that there's a place for them, even if they cannot join the march. Brother Kali, I see you want to jump in here. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's a lot to say, but I'll just share this. You know, I'm from Los Angeles originally, and had the benefit of growing up there in the 70s and 80s, which was, you know, according to Hollywood, that was the height of the gangs, right? Now, growing up, we called them sets. We didn't call them gangs. And let me tell you, it's from that experience that nobody can tell me that black folks can't organize themselves. With no resources, no formal education, no extensive military training or background, but I saw brothers, my age, older, younger, build some of the most disciplined organizations I have yet to see on the planet. Now, was it always oriented towards socially positive things? No. Was there a lot of things that reinforce socially positive things in our environment? No. But people were able to take what little that they had and turn some positive family building oriented to it, even though it had its own social distortions. So don't necessarily be, same thing, put off that some folks in the next neighborhood might not necessarily be feeling it right now. Because one of the things you learn sometimes about brothers being cool, coolness is a part of our culture. You know what I mean? It ain't about not showing emotion. I can take, like in L.A., there's a kind of a posture where it's like, I'm not going to say nothing to you unless I'm going to do it. Yeah. Right? If I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to speak it. But if I do say it, then I'm obligated to do it. So you got to sometimes be careful about what you say. Don't be out there hyping stuff up and you ain't going to really back it up. Right? So that's a lesson I learned. If I'm not really going to do it, it might be in my mind, but I was like, I didn't know if I'm ready to do that yet, so I'm going to keep quiet. And then there's some things you learn, like a lot of them brothers, and I know that was going on in Ferguson. Some of them brothers ain't going to be with you out in the street, but they'll be out there at night. Right? Because they got a different orientation about what they think their role is. And some people are like, man, I ain't with that marching. I ain't with that. I'm about to do something else. And I don't need to tell you or nobody else that I'm doing that. That ain't how I get down. So people got different places and different roles. I think it's for organizers is to create the space for folks to be and to play their role that they can. You know, I mean, we got to figure some of that out. You know, so and I was talking to one brother. One thing, you know, I would say that I had the kind of by age in the family, folks who lived a long time, running my mama's side of the family. So my grandmother, her father was born a slave. So that puts me, 3 generations directly from the experience, not 4 or 5, 3. I got pictures in my house of the brother, you know, my great-grandfather. And one of the things that she always kind of mentioned was that, no matter how bad it was, we used to always lament, you know, growing up in there, we was broke and eating peanut butter sandwiches or just eating peanut butter sometimes. She was like, bruh, we done had it rougher than this. Always remember that. You got opportunities to do things that your ancestors never even dreamed of, right? Or was hoping that somebody would be able to pick up the torch, right? So brighter days are still ahead. It's just a rough period, right? And I think another piece to always remember that is the brother was hitting. Our imagination runs short if we start our history on these shores. Right? It runs a little short. And it's very painful on these shores, right? But that ain't the whole and the sum total of who we are. And they know that. Our enemies know that oftentimes better than we do.
The opportunities that Brother Khalid is talking about were all won. Nobody gave them to us.
That's right.
We won them. And we will win this too. It may take a little longer, but we will win. And that has to remain at the center of what we do. Because you cannot inspire the rest of our people if we feel that we're going to be defeated. And our history tells us we will not be defeated. Sister, yes, sir.
Greetings. My name is Queen Hadisha. I'm an organizer as well and a freedom fighter. Let me say this. I come from good grounds. And a lot of things this young brother said and he said is absolutely true. And for you, ma'am, I used to knock on the doors in Selma, Alabama, getting the word out and different kind of things. Just call your people, get the word out to the brothers, the nighttime brothers, and tell them who's all in the hotels and who's ready for them. Okay, they know, so it's up to them soldiers, how they want to be. Because, see, we ain't won no war without some lives being taken. So let's get that clear. You feel me? But I got one thing on my heart. It's burning my heart, okay? That's Kendrick in Valdosta. We have not taken that on properly, and it needs to be. See, we got to prove ourselves here. You understand? I'm from Florida. So, you know, when Trayvon, I was on the bus because I got to get them white folks up in there. I'm not trying to be funny because they Jews. I'm from Sarasota, Florida, where Bush made his 911 announcement in my school. So I take that real personal, okay? And when he made that announcement, it was all a game. Because I already heard Condoleezza Rice a day or two before. She said the African conference was in Durban, South Carolina. She said it had been hijacked. Give it a couple of days after that, we had a hijacking. Okay, so what I'm saying is to say this about Florida. Believe me, them the biggest slaves on the planet Earth. But Georgia, we let them by. When Kendrick, the mother, came here, we was over there at that church in the West End. You should have seen her face. You should have seen her face. She said, them Negroes ain't gonna do nothing, they just talking. Because her son's situation have not been dealt with. We did not keep the light in that, on that. Now I'm asking you, the new revolutionaries, come on, let's deal with that. We're going to deal with this, but we got some right at our footsteps, right at the door here in Valdosta, Georgia. So Georgia, all that, let's deal with that. That'll make her happy. You should have seen their faces. Now this brother's stuff, all his organ was taken out. All of them. Nails. Nothing was even, they couldn't even do a forensic. They say they did get a little something. Now we all that, we say we all that. It's our duty. It's right at our door. We got our own water to deal with here too. Not that we don't deal with that, but we got Kendrick. Don't you know these rednecks? I ain't trying to be funny and I hate to say the word, but I like to say European Americans. Because I'm an African, a Native American. I'm Indian. So you don't give me no fire water. Because I would deal with you. You feel me? Then when they get the Indian the fire water, you know how they start fighting each other. So the point I'm making is this. They're watching us too. How we dealing with Kendrick's situation. And we ain't dealt properly with it. Now I'm ready. Whoever's ready, we organize, we get this done. They put some at the phone. They keep killing all over different states. See how you going to act. See how you going to be. I'm a strategist. They're going to see how you going to do this. Your attention off of this. Your attention off of that. We dealing this with as much possible. They say it's enough to kill you. It's enough what we going through to give you a heart attack. But what I'm saying is this. What we going to do here in Georgia about Kendrick's situation? Are we going to mobilize? Are we going to organize? And let them know that we're not going down like this in Georgia. See, I'm from Florida. We're a record train.
Sister, thank you.
Okay? But
Thank
I just
you.
had to bring it to you.
Hand the microphone to that brother with the hat on, please. Okay, we got to wrap up because the next plenary session, they coming in right now? Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Come on, brother.
I'm not going to be long, I promise. My man right here, just really quickly, I really want to respect him.
Talking to Mike a little bit.
Respect him for what he said. I cried maybe 4 or 5 times the same day. I was a survivor of Hurricane Katrina. I was 18 when it happened, and I was on the roof for 4.5 days with my son, who's now 10. He was 7 months at the time. And my cousin, ironically, was one of the young men of the Gina 6, being from there. So I attend Kennesaw State, which I'm from an HBCU, Southern University, so that's already a culture shock in itself. But I just really appreciate that, man. Just what you say, I tell every young person to get Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. That should be a Bible as well. He wrote that in 1885. Of course, couldn't get it published till 1933 because blacks, we didn't have rights, still don't have rights, but didn't have rights like that. That should be every young person's Bible. Unity is something that we're really lacking, and I even see it in my son. We're distracted, and we're distracted for the most stupidest reasons, and that's what they want us to do. But if you want to scare your enemy, it's nothing like dressing up in a bow tie and a tuxedo, because it's opposite to what they think. So just basically, I just want to say I appreciate you, man, and I just call all young people 40 years of age and under, like, to a call of action. I mean, when I heard it, I swear to God, if I would have had a full tank of gas, I would have drove there. I was only on a quarter tank, but and I had class the next day. But even so, you should feel a stirring in your spirit. It should make you upset. It should make you pissed. And I mean, I tell people all the time, we're only 35, 40, 50 years outside of the civil rights era. This is still fresh. It's still going on, and we still have a responsibility to do as young people. You know, if we're going to be in line for 13, 14 hours for Jordans, be in line for 3 hours at the financial aid office, educate yourself. And with true history, his story, not his story, your story, the true story of how powerful black people are. And I mean, you know, Mike Brown, you know, the young man from Kendrick, who I guess he was deceased and was rolled up in the mat. From what I actually hadn't even heard of that, and I'm sad that I hadn't until a few days ago. But that should make all young people upset. We should know about how the people who are supporting the Satan, Darren Wilson. Supporting him, you know, Quaker Oats, all of these huge major conglomerates are the same. Like, I mean, it's specific, y'all. I mean, these are the people that supported Emmett Till in 1955. These are their grandkids and great-grandkids. Everything is a history. History is a continuum. So once I think we actually understand how that goes and actually understand unity can only be achieved through education, we have to understand how important education is, and then we'll be able to, you know, better come together and unify with one another. And as men, you know what I'm saying, dreads, braids, thugs, I just cut my dreads after 10.5 years last month. I mean, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to show a compassionate side.
Thank you, brother.
Because, yeah, and that's all I want to say.
All right. Everybody fill out these surveys, please.
I'm not going to be very long, but this brother, that brother, the sister, and this brother said something that we have to understand. As Attorney Davis said, my company's handling the streaming. We lost our power when the civil rights movement stopped in the 60s, and I've said this for years. I've been a member of many black media organizations. Why? Because at that point, in the late 60s and the early 70s, we started letting them tell our story. We have absolutely no way to change the narrative until we change what they are seeing about us by telling what is happening to us. Yes. And that's what we have to do. We have to find ways to support black media that is not black-faced. Yes. Understand that. There is a difference. Because if it's owned by another group of people, they are still going to control the message. We have to get back. In the 60s, we had a network where the black radio stations, if something happened at 6 a.m. in Chicago, they knew about it at 3 a.m. in L.A. because they were on the phone telling people. We don't do that anymore. But the great thing is we have the internet. We have that opportunity. I need to talk to you before you leave. You guys will have your own network or channel set up wherever you need to get on at any point. You will have 24-hour access to.
Thank you, brother. Okay, as a historian, just let me correct something that people keep saying. This movement did not stop in the 60s. Thank you. Okay? This thing ebbs and flows. We had great success, but people have been working at this continuously from before 1619. So let's stop using language that makes us not understand who we are. Right? This movement did not stop in the 60s. So let's, nor did it start. That's exactly right. All right. We have to summarize what we are going to do. So, one is learn organizing principles. Is that correct? Study. Two, organize as broadly as we can, meaning that we will bring people into it where they are and help develop that consciousness and participation as they continue to work, including in ourselves. Because I'm learning a lot from you all now. I thought stuff you've done in a short period of time is amazing. And that's why I want to talk more to you so I can learn more. The tools that you use today, some of us up here, we used to do stuff, y'all don't even know what this is, a mimeograph machine. Who knows what that is? Who used a mimeograph machine to get the word out? See, that's when you in the basement doing this all night, printing some ugly flyers, and then getting up early in the morning or not going to bed and putting them in everybody's mailbox, right? But so we just want to go out of here, and you'll hear in the plenary from the other workshops too, that there are things that we're recommending we do, and that we try to hold this alliance together to continue to work as a broad group of folks. Now, we're not going to be able to work around everything together. That's not the way a united front works. But there are some things that we can all come together to do together. And that's where we have to be. We have to work for unity, not against unity. And a lot of that means, and I'm really glad you stood up and said what you said, brother, because that power of that emotion, of that connection to the spirit of your ancestors is what fuels us. What we have to do is funnel it into action that gets results. But you're right, we can't do it if we don't feel it. It's like trying to dance to a bad song. So we want to work toward unity, that is unity that holds us together around the things we can work together on. And that builds greater unity because it also builds trust amongst us. So I want to make sure that coming out of here, that's one of the things we say to the rest of the session, that unity and working inside of coalitions and alliances, united fronts, is an important principle that we should continue to foster. All right, everybody, please pass your, is somebody in here?